warm greetings. Give thanks to the Lord, His love endures forever. We shall start the session with a prayer. I request Dr. G. Arvind Swaminathan, Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, to do the prayer.
Prayer. Loving and most dear Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus Christ, we thank you and praise the Lord for this wonderful moment you have graciously given to look at your face. Lord Jesus, on the start of this webinar on pursuing your higher studies abroad, we look to your face, Lord. Lord, we pray for our management, we pray for our resource person, we pray for our organizers, we pray for the teaching fraternity of the CSE department, and also we pray for all the students of our CSE department, Lord. Bless us, lead us, and guide us, Lord. But as your word says, the horse is made ready for the battle. Victory comes from the Lord. Lord, grant us your victory, grant us your wisdom, your knowledge, your strength, and make us winning personalities, Lord. We commit the session into your precious hand. Guide us and lead us. Let your will be done. Let your name magnified. We offer all this prayer in the most precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. So, at the outset, it is my immense pleasure to welcome you one and all to this webinar. With a grateful heart to the Lord Almighty, I welcome you one and all who are present here for this webinar. First of all, it's my immense pleasure to record my gratitude to the Lord Almighty and also to the management of Francis Xavier Engineering College for all the support, motivation, and also for the initiative. Also, it's my immense pleasure to welcome Mr. S. Krishna Kumar, the Director for Alumni Association, who is present here. I welcome you, sir, to this August gathering. And also, it's my immense pleasure to welcome Professor P. Brinda, the HOD of CSE department, for all her tireless work and for all her support and initiative in conducting this webinar. It's my immense pleasure to welcome the resource person of the day, Mr. Engineer Samuel Benson, who is present here from Seattle, from United States of America. We are so proud of him, and we are so happy to have him in for this webinar. And to say in a nutshell, it is very difficult even to have a person from Chennai or Mumbai from India as a resource person. But Engineer Samuel Benson, our dear darling alumnus from 2010 batch, has agreed to be the resource person and has agreed to share his expertise with us. And we are so happy about that, and we acknowledge our gratitude and our thankfulness to him. And we welcome him also to this August gathering. Also, it's my immense pleasure to welcome my colleagues and comrades of Computer Science and Engineering Department for all their coordination, for all their support, and for all their motivation in conducting this webinar. And also, it's my immense pleasure to welcome the students of the department of Computer Science and Engineering Department, and also the participants of this webinar. Of course, pursuing your higher studies in abroad is a dream come true, and also pursuing higher studies in America is a great Himalayan task. And our resource person, Engineer Samuel Benson, has did it, and I'm so happy to have him as the resource person. Also, it's my immense pleasure to welcome my colleagues and comrades of CSE department. And with these words of welcome, before getting into the session, I wish to give a short introduction about Engineer Samuel Benson, who is the alumnus of 2010 batch, Francis Xavier Engineering College. Engineer Samuel Benson is the son of the soil. He is from Tirunelveli, and we are so proud about it. And he studied his schooling from St. John's Higher Secondary School in Tirunelveli, and also he did his graduation from Francis Xavier Engineering College, Tirunelveli. And after completing his graduation, he worked for 3 years in HCL Chennai. And after that, he did his MS in the University of Texas, Arlington. And it was a Himalayan achievement. And followed by that, he worked for 3 years in Chicago as a software engineer. And right now, he has moved to Seattle. He is working in a company called 4C. And we are so proud, and we are so happy to have him as the resource person. And we just, and based on his request, we just want to have him have the session as a discussion session. And if you have any doubts, you can please send your queries to the chat box. And now I call upon Mr. Samuel Benison to share his expertise, and followed by that we'll move on to the discussion session. Over to Mr. Samuel Benison from United States of America.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. So it's a great pleasure to talk to you all after a long time. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about the process that I've been through. So, and then I don't have a lot of thing to talk for myself. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about the experience and what I've been through, or what are the steps. If you have any questions, you can definitely ask that. So the process is it's a very complicated thing. So I highly encourage you, no matter what I say. So it's been a one-sided process that might not have been changed much. So I would highly encourage you guys to do your own research and Google about it and see if anything has changed since then. But most probably the process would be similar. So the first thing I would say is, while after you finish your final year, or while you're finishing your final year, the first thing to do would be to study for the GRE and Toefl. GRE is basically the combination of mathematics and English. So there are a lot of centers in and around here. I don't know if there's any in Tirunelveli, but I did my classes in Chennai while I was working in HCL. So the first thing to do is prepare for your GRE and Toefl. So do that, because that's very important. So the universities decide based on your academic percentage as well as the GRE and Toefl score. That's the main weightage of how you get into a university. If you are planning on going to a certain university, the first thing to do is have a good percentage in your academics, as well as get a good score in GRE and Toefl, which is very important. GRE, like I said, it's a combination of English and mathematics, but Toefl is completely full English. So Toefl is just to assess you as a foreign student, as a non-native English speaking student. So just to assess how your English level is. So Toefl is as written test and speaking test, listening test, and then also the I think there's one more section. I forgot what it is. So it's pretty much the English, all about what you guys can understand, how you can understand and cope up with the language, a language here, and how they speak, and whether are you able to understand that? Are you able to cope up with the language here? So that's kind of what the GRE and Toefl is. So getting a good score in that is very, very important. Plus, I would say that the another thing would be to when you apply for an application in university. I'll talk about that in a bit. But the first thing they will ask you is, why are you applying? So it's like a statement of purpose. They call it a statement of purpose. So it's like a big essay, that you describe about yourself, your achievements so far, and why are you applying? Why do you want to study masters in our university? When the universities ask you to submit a statement of purpose, it's basically about why are you applying to our university? Why do you want to study masters in our university? So it's a big essay that you have to write for yourself, and I'm sure you can find some samples in internet, but you be original. It's they can filter it through easily, if you're just copy pasting. So be original, share about your experience, and get a big essay, and talk about yourself, and talk about your achievements, talk about why you want to, why are you motivated to do the engineering in a particular university. So while you apply, you can apply for multiple universities. So you can use the same statement of purpose. You can just modify a little bit, and you can use that. Probably you might have to customize a little bit for each and every university that you apply, but the code template would be the same. So I would recommend you guys to write one essay and then modify it while you're applying for every university. And then another thing would be 3 letter of recommendations. So that would be from 3 of your faculties from your current college or university. So that would be one of your faculties from the computer science department, IT department, whatever department you are in. So that would be that's kind of similar. So it's an essay from your professors at your current a college, why, like, what is that student achieved, what kind of student he or she is. So that's kind of an explanation that you need to submit. You would need 3 of them. So some faculties would faculties would prefer to type the entire thing by on their own, but some of them would prefer to, like, they would prefer, like, maybe you can prepare one and I can approve that. So what you need to do is, in that case, you just have to set up an interview with them and then ask them questions. Like, you can find the questions in online, like, what kind of questions, and then you can get the answer about yourself. Like, ask them, like, how am I as a student, like, how am I and these things, and then you can prepare an essay, and then if they approve that, then they can sign it up. So you can get, if you are working after you finish your bachelor's, then you can get one from your current working manager or your current reporting manager, and then 2 from your faculty, or you can get all 3 from your faculties itself. So, but at least minimum 2 from your faculty is mandatory, and total you would need 3 letter of recommendations. So, and then you need to prepare a resume, like you apply for a job. A resume is also important. And then what you need to do is, based on your GRE and TOEFL score and your current academic percentage, do your research and pick the universities. So I typically say you can apply for 5 to 7 universities, and so you have to do some research and understand, like, because the universities will vary. Like, not every university will approve it. Like, if you have a 65% in your academics, and if you scored some, like, 300, 305 in GRE, then there is universities for that. You should not aim for, like, bigger universities, because then your approval rate is low. So you have to pick a university, 5 to 7 universities based on your score and your current academic percentage, and always make sure that you can pick one that is, for sure that they are going to approve, and then a couple of them are a little ambitious, and then a couple of them are right around the score that you have, and each university's website will walk you through what are the documents that they would require, and so you can follow that, and you can fill out the application. So one of the things that they would ask is, like, a consolidated mark sheet, not the mark sheet that we get from our current college when we finish it, but they have a specific pattern. Anna University knows that. So I got it from Chennai. I had to go to Chennai Anna University to get that from the particular pattern. They would have your records. So I think you have to pay like 400 rupees or something, and then they will give you mark sheets with a seal. So that's kind of very important. So they will seal it. They will put the mark sheet, and then they will seal it. You're not allowed to open that seal. You just attach that to your application. So I would say, like, there are some places in Chennai that help you through this process. If you really want it, so they would charge you like 20,000, 25,000 to help you through all these process, like, helping you with your statement of purpose, helping you with the letter of, that's apart from GRE, and there are coaching centers that does train you on GRE and TOEFL exam as well. Apart from that, there is some places that help you with the application process, because it's very little complicated, I would say, because each university will require certain things and certain ways that you need to follow. So I would say, if you're really well researched, then you can do it on your own. It's nothing that you can't do it on your own. But if you want a little bit of help, I would encourage, like, you guys to get some of their help. To maybe they would be able to answer specific questions for a particular university. If you're facing some issues, they will be able to help you. They'll be able to guide you through all the process. So that's kind of the whole process. Like, so make sure you don't apply too many universities, because each university there is an application fee, which is around $150, which is like 10,000 rupees, our money. So you don't want to spend like a lakh, so 1 lakh or like 1,50,000 on application itself. So I would say 5 to 7 universities. Pick carefully, and so follow the protocols and follow the instructions that they have given you guys, and then submit all the necessary documents. That's very important. So if there is any thing that's missing, they will immediately, sometimes they will reject you. They don't give any reasons like why they denied your application. So So you cannot go back and get the reason. So when you are applying for an application, make sure you followed all their university website will walk you through all the information. So make sure you follow all the steps and attach all the necessary documents. Some things you can submit online. Some things you would have to submit through, through a physical copy. You can send it through DHL. So that's kind of what the process is. So I know it's not an easy thing, like Arvind said. It's a Himalayan thing to go through the process itself to get to the get to the application and submit it. So one of the other things that they would ask you is financial responsibilities. How are you going to pay for it? So typically it would cost you around, for a 2 years master's education, including living expense. They will ask you to submit a proof, probably a letter from a bank approving your education loan. So most of the students would not have. So it will be around 20 lakhs to anywhere between 20 lakhs to anywhere between 50 lakhs. So depending on the university that you're choosing. So sometimes it's even more. So not a lot of people are going to have that kind of money, available. So most of the people would apply for education loan, like I did. So you have to get go to approach a bank and get. So a lot of banks will do education loan. So you have to have some education loan. You have to have show some that. Like I said, every university will require a different kind of financial statement. So you would have to submit that, like a education loan proof or something like that, along with the application. So that's kind of the process, and then you wait until you get the approval from the university. That will typically take 1 to 2 months, and then you apply for F1 visa with the US consulate, like a student visa, and then it's typically you would have to go to Chennai. The next thing to do is wait for your application to get approved. So once they will respond back to you regardless of whether it's approved or denied. So you won't get any reasoning if it's denied. So if it's approved, then they will send you the legal documents, which you can present it to. Then you can apply. So then you can go to the US Embassy website and then apply for the F1 visa and schedule an appointment. So you would have to go to Chennai to actually go in person. And once you apply, you can schedule it for a particular date and time. So once you schedule it, so you have to take your passport and go there. You would have to pay again. I think the fee for the visa was around $180, which is around 15,000. So you would have to pay and then schedule the appointment, and then you can get the university's approval document and everything. And then once you get that, so the next is the semester. So you have to decide. So when you are applying, so you can decide. Two different semesters are that. Most people would apply for fall semester, which would start on August. That's the main semester which would start. Some people would start on spring as well. So spring is January. So if you have to start in August, then the deadline for applying for the application would be by maximum by March. So by March, your deadline would be done. So if after deadline, you cannot apply for a particular university on that particular semester. So if you're applying for fall particular, so let's say fall 2020, so then it would have been it should be your all the GREs and everything should be taken. Your documents should be ready by January, so that you can apply for that before March 2020 would be the deadline for fall 2020. For spring, it would be somewhere around June or July, so then you would have more time. So most students would go for fall, so that's the most common time to apply. So when you get that, so there are, even in masters, there is no such thing. You can just apply for master's computer science, or you can apply for a specialization like software engineering or database management systems, or you can pick your specialization after you go there, and you can just apply for master's in computer science, and then you can pick a specialization while you're studying there. Then some universities gives you an option. Some universities will ask you to apply for like a particular specialization itself. So there are different things inside computer science itself. So when it comes to masters, you might have to choose it. Sometimes you can leave it as open. So do your research on that particular university, understand their requirements before applying. So once this is all over, you would be probably able to go there, and the onboarding process will be you will be able to know, and understand everything. So the main thing that I would say is like it's the education system is completely different from India to US. So you should expect like there is a time for an adaptation period from like what you study, the way you studied, and then what you say. I'll talk about it in a minute. So I can explain a little bit, but the process is very different. So each semester you have to register for your own class. So you can pick any class. So there will be, so for masters you have to take 12 class. So for each semester is 3 classes. So it can be anything. So some students study a particular course on the first semester. Some people study the same course in the last semester. It's up to you how you pick it. So you can decide which 3 you can pick first, and then the next 3. Even there are options, like you don't have to study a particular. You and your fellow student might be studying the same MS in computer science degree, but they might certain classes would be common, but most of the classes would be optional. You don't have to pick the same class they are picking. So you can pick your own class, and each class will be like twice a week, 1.5 hours. So you have to find the classroom in the university and go and sit there, and you do the lecture. You listen to that, and then most of the exams would be. It's not like one final exam and you score. So the exam happens throughout the year. Every exam would be like you will have weightage like 5%, 10%, and then they will consolidate everything. So some students get approved. When they apply for a university, in the application, they'll get a conditional. There is three status. One is rejection, another one is approval, and then there is one called conditional approval. Conditional approval means you're obligated to maintain your GPA. They call it as GPA. Here it's all about 4. 4 out of 4 you should maintain 3.5. 3.5 means you should score at least B on each of the class that you're taking on the first two semesters. So otherwise they will, like I've seen cases where the university will they have the option to terminate your your studies if you don't match the particular criteria. So if you are conditionally approved, be very aware of that and make sure you study hard. So the education, so the grading system would be out of 4. If you get 90 and above, it's A. If you're 80 and above, it's B. If you're 70 and above, C. 60 and above, D. So D, anything D and then below 60, it's F. So anything below 70, even if you get F or D, some professors might ask you to retake that same class in the next semester. So just because you get some grade doesn't mean that it's most of the students are expected to get A or B. So no student should get C. Is very rare. So nobody would get D. If you get D, then they would ask you to retake. So the education system is completely different here. So you have to understand and prepare for the adaptation. So the first semester would be the hardest semester of all time. I remember the times like where I walked in and the first semester was like, it was completely different. The first class I went in, they were asking me to do some Android projects, which I have never done before. So they won't teach you about that. They teach you the concept of software engineering, and they ask you to develop a Android app based on that. So there is a lot of things that you need to. The core important thing when you study abroad is the 3 things. Like there is self motivation. So you are away from your family and friends, and it's a new country, and it's a new culture and new environment, new process of studying your college. So like I mentioned, it's very, very different. It's very advanced when you're studying here. So the 3 things is self motivation, self determination, and self learning. So a lot of you're not in India. The faculties are amazing. They teach everything, and then your questions are based on that. So, but in here, they teach the concept of it, and they would ask you to implement that concept in a practical project, and that's very important. So there is a lot of self-learning there. So, like I said, self-motivation, self-determination, and self-learning are very, very important when it comes to this kind of when it comes to abroad studies. Not everything will be taught in the class. You are required to do your own research and learn a few things, and then do the projects, because most of the times projects would I know we have in India, our education system is 80% it's the final exam and 20% is lab work, right? So but in here probably it would be 70% would be projects. So multiple projects would hold 70% of your final exam might be 10%. So you are doing like quiz, like sometimes weekly quiz. Each quiz would be like 2% to your final weightage, and then there will be project. Each project would be like 15%, and then sometimes there will be class attendance. If you attend the class, then you will get 5%. So there are different criteria. Each class, the professors will set their own criteria. So be aware of that, and there will be a lot of self-learning to do. And you would have, just because there is, so if you think about it, like there's only 3 class every week, so 3 into 2. So like each class would be 1.5 hours twice a week. Some classes will be Monday, Wednesday. Some classes will be Tuesday and Thursday. So you're basically studying for 1 class 3 hours. So and then you are doing 3 class per semester. So each week you're only doing 9 hours of class in class attendance. The rest of the time is on you, right? So there is a lot of self-learning to do on the rest of the time. So you're not just like, you can't just go for 9 hours and then for the class and then be done with it. So there is a lot of self-learning to do. There is a lot of self-research to do. So that's one of the things that's very important. So I will end on this, so I can talk a little bit more about that based on the questions you guys have. So first, understand, like, whether it's, ask your question, like, is this the right thing for me? Is this like Arvind said, it's a Himalayan task. Getting an admission in one university is another thing. It's a different, it's a different beast when you actually study. That's another. So you have to climb 2 huge mountains. So understand, like, whether this is the right for me. Am I the right? So you need to understand, like, am I self-motivated? Can I cope up with that? So you cannot think like, maybe I'm a very average student, this might not be good for me. Don't think like that. I was a very average student. So I was not the person who was scoring 80 and 90 on my bachelor's, because it was like one of the problem for me was, if you ask my friends, I was one of the person who was studying the hardest. Like every exam I would study until the next day morning. Everybody will sometimes people be like, you still studying in the morning. So, and then when I go to the exam, there is like, they give you the 40-page like booklet to I can't even finish 30 because I'm a very slow writer. So that's one of the problems, that I score like 50, 60 on my bachelor's. That doesn't mean that you're not fit to do masters. There is a difference. So one of the hardest exam that I did in my masters is a 20. One of the final exam was a 20 multiple choice question, and then it's a 20 multiple choice question. It's an open book. It's an open laptop. You can search internet and you can search your textbook, which is written by that exact professor that's teaching you the class, and you can find the answer there. 20 multiple choice question. That's the hardest exam that I've ever encountered in my 30 years life. That's one of the very toughest exam. So you can understand the difference. Like, the education system is completely different. Some people cope with it, whether you are an average student or not. So if you have the determination to have a self-learning on your own, if you can study, if you think that you can motivate yourself to learn on your own by doing your own research, then I think you're the right person to do the do the masters. So it's all up to you, whether you're an average student, whether you're an excellent student. So pick a topic, like for example, something that's not being taught by your faculties right now. Maybe if you're in a final year, think about something like maybe a database system, or maybe an Apple or Android app that's not being taught by the faculty right now, and try to see if you can learn on your own. Do your research, like YouTube, pick a YouTube, and see if you can learn on your own. Try to see if you can implement it. If you can learn on your own and if you can implement it, then you are the right person for this kind of education. So there is a lot of self-learning to do in this education. So I think that speaks for itself because I've seen a lot of my friends, even my fellow students that came all the way from India, and then at the end of first semester, they'll say this is not the thing for me, like this is not for me, because they are so used to the education over there. They don't want to adapt, or they're not willing to adapt to the new style of education. So understand yourself, try to understand. It's all about self-reflection. Ask yourself, do I have the three things, like self-determination, self-motivation and self-learning to do this thing? And if you are, then you will be able to achieve this mammoth of task of studying abroad education. So I think I will end it here, and I can answer a few more questions if you guys have.
Yeah, thank you, Benison. It was an awesome lecture by you. I think most of the questions you have answered, but still we wish to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
It can be a little bit of personal also.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. No problem.
The first question I just wish to ask in the sense is like, normally students who are living in Chennai or Mumbai, they have idea of pursuing MS.
Mm-hmm.
It is very rare that students from southern part, it's like what doing their MS. I just want to ask you the reason how you got this motivation. How you got this motivation to do your MS in United States of America?
I thought about it. I've never talked to anybody about it when I did my bachelor's. So because one of the reasons was my cousin she was very motivated to do this while she was studying. She was like two years younger than me. So I've always thought about maybe I want to do it. But like I said, I thought to myself, I'm a student who's getting 60, 62 in my final exam. Am I good enough to do this? So it took me a while for me to. That's when I found the motivation. I found my self-confidence. I wouldn't say self-confidence. It's like trusting myself that I can do this. When I was working in Chennai, that's one at the time. I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can try doing GRE and see what I can do. So it's one of the things. It's a very, very, very hard to predict, who can do it and who cannot. I thought at that time, when I was studying, doing my bachelor's, and based on what I was scoring, I did not think that I was going to do it, because it was maybe I didn't think much. Maybe I thought to myself it was too much for me. But believe it or not, that the things that I was doing, maybe my biggest problem was not studying properly. Maybe I couldn't able to convey myself when I was doing my bachelor's, put every thoughts into my writing in that 40 page. So the education system was different here, and maybe I was able to perform better in this education because there is not a lot to write, right? So if you know, you can have, if you are able to answer 20 multiple choice question, then that because it is 1 hour. You can even take 2 hours. The professor don't care. So, but it's a very different thing. I think to answer your question, maybe it's I've always thought about it, but it took me a while for me to have the trust because it's a lot of money my parents are investing. Right? I don't want it to go there and fail. So, yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you for answering that. You got your inspiration from your cousin. I think our students also will get an inspiration from you certainly, and many of our seniors are also have done their MS. Very good. My second question is I wish to ask you that whether the training which you received at Francis Xavier Engineering College was adequate for you to do your MS at United States of America.
Definitely, sir. So I would say. Like I said, I've had my trainings and I've learned a lot through the 4 years. Maybe the one of the things that what time they told one of my professors, they looked at my bachelor's score sheet and they were very shocked to see the scores that I was receiving. Then they asked me did you get an adequate education in your bachelor's? I said yes, and I said like I did receive my proper education. Maybe I didn't. So I told them like I have to convey that in a very 40-page exam. Then they were very shocked to hear our exam pattern. Maybe that was one of the reasons I wasn't able to perform. And I told them yes, because a lot of things I studied in bachelor's, I was able to use in master's, even though I had to do a lot of. So the education system, they call it as in theoretically, our Indian education system and US education systems are it's 7 years ahead. So for example, what you're studying in third grade, we study on 10th grade, people study on 3rd or 4th grade in here. So that's 7 years ahead. The education system here is 7 years ahead. So there is some catching up to do when you come here, but you still would use a lot of things you study from bachelor's.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I think it was wonderful that you talked about your self-determination, self-motivation, and also self-learning. That was awesome, Benison. I just want to ask another one interesting question. In the sense is when you were here, your communication was also just like the student who is in Francis Xavier Engineering College. But after you went to US and you came back, your accent has completely got changed. Did you find any difficulty regarding the communication you had in when you were doing your MS there?
No, not really. I mean, some people do, but I do watch a lot of English movies. Maybe even when I was doing my. So I think maybe that, and the more I talk, my accent has also changed. That's true, but I wasn't having a hard time understanding people. But that comes from more of listening. And your accent can be anything. People can understand as long as you're talking clearly. And eventually, the more you are there, you will blend into my accent is a combination of Indian accent, and it changed a little bit after I came here. So some people have, but they will pick it up. The more you communicate, it's all about. That's why a lot of faculties encourage the students to talk in English, right? The more so when you come here, there is no other option just to speak in English. Even a lot of people from Tamil Nadu, I don't speak Hindi. So even to an Indian student, who is from the other parts of the state, we would have to communicate in English. The more you communicate, you can understand better as well as you can talk better.
Okay. So Jevin sir is asking one more question, that how about the possibilities for you, regarding the expenses, when you are doing your MS there, is it possibilities for you to do part-time jobs there and manage your expenses?
Yes. So there are two options there. So either you can, so you cannot do off-campus. That's not allowed to do. So you cannot do off-campus jobs maybe in India it might be it might not be a good thing. Here people work at university cafeteria, to restaurants, like university restaurants. We have in university, we have restaurants and stuff like that. You can work there. It's not a bad thing to do it. I worked in our food court, our university food court, and I worked in book library. And then after the end of second semester, I got internship. So in the summer, from May to August, there is not any course. It's your summer break. At that time, I was working in a software company as an intern. Intern means it's like a temporary thing. You work for a few particular amount of time. You can do that as well. And then I continued that through remotely. While I was working, while I was studying, I was able to work as well, 20 hours per week. And then you can also work under a professor as a teaching assistant or a research assistant. That's also possible. And the professor will pay you $1,000 per month, something like that. So that's also a possibility. So there are multiple ways to do it. It's up to you to convince people to get the job.
Okay. The next question is it's one of a student. It's some of them, after they completion their MS, they come back to India. Some of them they stay in US itself for job. Now, how about the prospects for the students who are completing their MS and coming back to India?
It's high. it's very high. So when you do your, I think I would say, like, like I said, so when you study here, you are much advanced than a lot of students who are competing there. So that's true. But I wouldn't recommend coming back, uh, at least without working here for a few years, because you mounted this 20 to 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs loan. So going back to India and working there, it would take years for you to repay that loan. So at least you should think about getting jobs here and work here for a few years before you move back to India, because a lot of people feel homesick being away from far away from friends and family. They would want to immediately go back after they finish it, which is fine. But the you might get a much higher salary than the people who are competing there, but still it would be a lot of money for you to repay eventually, if you go back and work. And but some people go back to India without getting any job. So because after you finish your graduation, you have 1 year for you to get a job. So some universities, there are some companies who come to university and pick students, but most of the time it's all about you. Like you're applying for university, you apply for job, and you get interviews. And some companies have multiple levels. The company I was working, I did 7 rounds of interview. Like 5 of them are technical with different people. So it happens. They each company would do a refined interview process. You have to be very strong in what you're applying, and the things that they are expecting. So while you're studying, so make sure you understand the concept very, very well. And one of the two important things that I'm currently in the interview panel in my current company. So one of the two things that we expect are algorithms and object-oriented language. So those two topics are very, very. I cannot stress enough about algorithms. Having a thorough understanding about algorithms, solving a programming challenge question is very, very important in landing a job, after you finish here. And I would, at this time, there is so much going on in this world right now, like COVID-19, and a lot of Americans lost their job. So I remember when I was studying, like in 2008, there was a big recession happened, and that affected a lot of people's job in US. There are so many people affected. So if you're on your final year of your studies, I would recommend wait for a year or two, work there, while you prepare for your GRE and TOEFL. Wait for a year or two before you apply, because right now it will take a few years for the things to get normal. With the thing that happened in the last 2 months, it's very unpredictable. What happens in the next year, nobody knows. So wait for a year or so to see what happens, and then apply for your education, because it's a big investment that you're making, 20 to 30 lakhs on your education. So choose carefully, choose the timing carefully.
Okay, Bennison, I have one more question. You just talked about this point earlier also, but I just want to reiterate once again, because it's an important question. There is always a question in everybody, like why go and pursue your education abroad? And what's the main reason? How is the education unique in abroad? This is one of the question. Can you just throw light on this?
Yes. So I think one of the reasons that you study is whether do you want to study higher education or not. Bachelor's is you learn certain things, but it's a first initial level of education, right? So I think a lot of companies right now, they expect a master's degree, at least in US. So you have to. I think I would recommend doing at least a master's if you are going to be in the software industry. It's a good thing to do a master's. I think it's up to you to decide whether you want to do it in India or US. But the education here is completely very different. And I think I would say different. It's very advanced. So the things I have to learn myself to catch up to the first semester was huge. So I've learned a lot of things in bachelor's. But again, that's why it's a level above, right? Bachelor's, and then on top of that, there's master's is the next level of education. So there's a lot of things you would learn here in masters compared to what you learn in masters in India. That's the honest truth.
Okay. There is one more question from our student. It is like, do we have provisions for doing a distance education in abroad?
What do you mean, like online education?
Yeah, online education. Staying here in India and doing your education in abroad.
I don't know. I mean, there are plenty of online education options with this, especially with the current COVID-19 situation. There are a lot of things that's going online. So I think there's a possibility, but I don't know how much. I think you would still, some universities require you to be in presence at least once a semester, something like that. So people who study online education they're still in, like, for example, I live in Washington State. I can study in Texas or New York, and I can go there once a month, once a semester. I don't know how possible it is to do it from India, because it might be a little complicated. I think if you live in the same country, online education is very, very, very feasible. But from abroad, I'm not sure.
Okay. I just want to ask my final question from my side. It's like you told that in master in computer science you have masters in computer science, you have in database management, like that. Okay. What are the different options we have like that in masters MS?
I specialized in software engineering and database management system, and then the job that I'm working on is, like, I'm an automation QA engineer. So I went into the software engineering. One of the parts of software engineering is what I'm specialized in. So so I had an option for software engineering. Database management system is another specialization. There is another degree called Masters in Science, Masters MS, Master of Science in software engineering itself. That's a special degree. I am Master of Science in computer science with a specialization in computer science and database. You get to pick two when you're a computer science master's. And I picked database and software engineering, and there is artificial intelligence, and then there is machine learning, and probably there's a lot more.
Sorry for interrupting, Benishan. We have two more questions. I want to know that what are the difficulties you had while you were doing your MS at United States of America.
Okay, so during the preparation for the application, or while I was actually studying there?
Yeah, when you're doing.
Okay, so I think one of the things was, like, catching up to the education system, because a lot of things were different. So I think one of the things that I was a little confused about was, when I went there. The first thing was, like, I remember my first day still, like, I don't even know where to find my classroom, because I was having a hard time finding the classroom. It's because nobody would ask you to, like, attend the class or anything. It's up to you to do it on your own. So I think one of the things I was finding difficult was, taking my responsibilities on my own, going to the class, and then as soon as the class is over, you would have to do a lot of homework, and then there is, on top of that, you have the regular chores, like, you get your own apartment, so you have to do your own. When I was doing my bachelor's, I was I was commuting from my work, from my home. So because my home life balance was, I was only have to study. But here it's harder for you to do your own laundries, do your own cooking. On top of that, you have to go to class, and then I was doing part-time job as well. So it's balancing the schedule was a little harder, because you have to do it all. So you have to take your own responsibility. You have to take care of yourself, as well as you have to take care of your education and your responsibilities. Because a lot of things are, I would say, the good word to say it is implicit. Implicit means, like, it's not explicitly told. Nobody will tell you, like, hey, you have to do this, like, you have to do these researches to get what you wanted. They will just tell you, like, do this. But in that, like, you do this project, there is a lot of implicit things that's mentioned. So you have to figure out a lot of things on your own, and doing that. That was a little harder for me to do in the beginning, to understand their workflow and ask a lot of questions. So people will help you, but you have to ask questions, but you need to know what questions to ask. Unless you know the right question to ask, you will not get the answer that you're looking for. So that was a little challenging initially.
Okay. There's one more question, Benson. It is like, will the work experience in India, will it help you to do your MS in United States of America?
Not a lot, I would say. I mean, it depends. Like you're working on one specific language. Sorry, for example, like in India, let's say that you are a software developer in a particular company. Like let's say you are a software developer in Accenture. So you're working on a particular language, let's say Java. So you're working on a particular things. When you do masters, it's a whole another level of Java. Like you're facing another lot of things like Spring, Struts, and then on top of that, each project will be like for one course itself. One project will be in Java. One project will be in Python. I'm talking about one class. So it will help you a little bit, but not a lot. That I would say. That's why you have to learn a lot of things on your own. I remember the time, like by the time I was done 2 years, I know a little bit about C, C++ from bachelor's, and then a little bit about Java. I don't know anything about Python. By the time I was done, I've learned. I had to learn, like, I think 11 to 12. I didn't even remember like there was that many programming languages in computer science. I had to learn 11 or 12 programming languages for 12 for at least I think it was for 6 different classes, I guess. So it will help you a little bit, but you still have to put a lot of effort on your own to learn different things.
Okay, there's one more question which has been texted to me. It's like, for example, is it possible for a non-computer science graduate to pursue MS in computer science and engineering?
Yes, it's very possible. Like because a lot of people do that. So that's one of the reasons that you will get conditional admit, like approved with. Say some universities will give you a conditional admit. That is, per se, you have to score 80 and above on your first first 2 semesters. That's 6 classes. So you would have to learn a lot of things on your own before you even get to masters. On top of you're preparing for GRE, TOEFL. So if you have the right determination, yes, so you can do it. So a lot of universities will approve. Like if you have a good academic score and if you have a good GRE score, and even if you're changing, you should explain that's why the statement of purpose will come into, right? The essay that you're writing, you have to explain why you are changing from, like, for example, electronics engineering to computer science. And then if the universities are convinced, they will give you the conditional admit. So then you have to learn a lot of things on your own before you even get there, because you would have a lot of catching up to do compared to the computer science students.
Okay, so this is quite another question. After completing your BE, you'll be in crossroads. Whether you want to pursue, go for a job, or whether you want to go for post graduation, or you want to go for MS, like that. How to really find that I can go for MS, this will suit me? How to make the decision?
I think that's kind of what I said. Like you can go for both. It's not that you don't have to do the job. I personally recommend, like, if you're 100% set on, like, okay, I have to do this. I don't care about what I'm doing as a job. I have to do MS. Then focus on that. Like you don't have to work. Some people, I was working parallelly as well as I was preparing for masters, because I was on that crossroads. I wasn't sure whether I want to do it or not. So then you can prepare for your GRE while you're TOEFL while you're working. So I think that one of the things that I explained is, like, you don't have to be a student who's who's getting 80 and above in your bachelor's to do MS. I was getting 50 and 60 and above. So like I said, pick a topic, like, that is not being taught by your faculty. Like, pick a programming language, for example, Python or JavaScript or something like that that's not been taught by your faculty so far, and see if you can learn it, and see if you can not set your time, like, there is no set time, like not within 1 week. Like take your time, 1 month, 2 months, do a lot of research on it. The internet is the best educator that we have right now, right? So do a lot of research, watch a lot of YouTube videos, and understand yourself, and try to solve a couple of problems, and or pick a project, like develop an app something like that that's completely new to you, and see if you can learn on your own. If you can learn on your own, then that's a great start, right? So then you can learn on anything. So that would be the deciding criteria that I would say. If you can motivate yourself, and if you can, some days are harder. Like, you might be stuck, and you might be like, you just want to throw everything away, and then, like, be done with it. At that time, where do you find the motivation? And if you can still keep going, and I have to find solve problems, ask questions. There are a lot of internet forums that you can. And sometimes you might have questions that even the faculties might not be able to answer, because they don't know what kind of problem that you're facing, right? So if a certain programming language is throwing error, they cannot just give you a solution right hand. So it's up to you to find your solution. So they can answer general questions. So find the solution, and if you have the right determination to find the solution, and if you can achieve something by self-learning and asking questions, and having the right determination, I think that's a good criteria to start. Like, then you can do anything that you want to do.
Okay. So I just want to ask one more question. Since we talked about talked about GRE and TOEFL, is it the same process which is being followed right now also, which was followed when you entered? And it's like, what are the difficulties you face regarding the GRE and the TOEFL exams?
I think I'm confident that the questions patterns might be different, but I think they would still follow the same GRE. But I think that the things that I was facing was brushing up all my. It's basically what the GRE is nothing but 12th standard English and math. So this has nothing to do with our university or any college, because every student who's like, whether you're a computer science or you're electrical or you're a MBA student, most of the students will do GRE, or if you're going into MBA or management, then you do GMAT. That's another thing. Instead of GRE, if you're going into engineering, then you're doing GRE. If you're doing into management, then you're doing GMAT. They both are similar. Like, it's basic mathematics and English. So I had to brush up a lot of my old things, and then I had to learn a lot of things new with respect to. It's mainly the English. It was a little struggling to because you would have to learn a lot of new words. So now you have to get a dictionary, and you have to learn a lot of new English words to use in your sentence and stuff like that. That was I find it difficult. But once I understand what the learning process is, then I was able to keep going and keep learning. And then you can take a GRE anytime you want. So I would say, like, unless you're fully confident, then wait for it. Keep learning, keep studying. Like, you can take GRE anytime. Like, if not this semester, do the next. Aim for next semester, or aim for next year. Focus thoroughly, and once you're very confident, take the GRE exam and TOEFL exam, because those are very important criteria when the university decides your application.
Okay. There are two more questions in the chat box, Jason. One is like, you told that when you studied in MS, you studied some 11 programming languages. Okay. Mm-hmm. And here you studied 2 languages. Now, in the perspective of programming languages, how was it difficult? How was it different studying here and there? And what kind of feel you had?
I think for first language, yes, so I think that's why you have to understand, as long as you have a good knowledge of, that's why we stress, we don't care, if in my current company, we use Python as our language for building our application. So we hire candidates who doesn't even have Python knowledge. They might have Java experience. We don't care about that. As long as you have a core understanding of object-oriented programming and algorithms, that's why those are more important than a particular language. A language can be taught. The basic concept understanding is very hard to teach somebody when they join a work environment. So I would say, rather than focusing on a language, focus on the concept. Pick an algorithm, or there are different websites like Career Cup, Geek for Geeks. You can find a lot of algorithm questions like that been asked by Google or big companies like Microsoft. So see if you can solve them, and then understand, if you're doing some algorithms or object-oriented programming, then focus on those subjects more than other things, because those are very important. Software engineering is another good subject. So object-oriented programming algorithms are very important. As long as you know that, programming languages doesn't matter. So you can easily, once you can teach one language to yourself, you can teach 11 languages to yourself. That's not a big deal. So as long as you know the core concept, you can teach any language you want.
That's great. That's great, Benison. There's one more question from the teaching fraternity of Francis Engineering College. She has asked, like, how was the teaching methodology in US different from the teaching methodology in India?
I think it's very practical. In teaching methodology in India is very theoretical, I would say. It's a very practical. Like I said, 70% of our credentials are scored by projects that we do on our own. They'll tell you to do this program. So we give a weightage of 20% on our subject. 80% is the final exam. There is nothing that I have faced in my, I had 12 classes for masters, right? So none of the 12 classes has a more than 20% weightage on any of the exams. So we give a weightage on 80% on one exam, on our final exam, and 20% on our lab, which is completely different. I don't think that's, I didn't think that was the right way to do it. So there is so much emphasis on practical things. The professors teach you the theoretical concept of what you need to do, and then they will ask you to apply on a practical project. That's why that practical project is very important. So they give a lot of weightage on that. 60 to 70% of your final academics, final score for the particular class depend on your projects. So that's completely different, I would say. So it's very, like I said, we can't even imagine a particular exam, final exam, where we have only 20 multiple choice questions, and then score based on that, right? If somebody I don't know if we still have the 40-page final exam system. If somebody doesn't, I can remember the number of times I finished more than 30 pages. I can count the number of times I finished more than 30. If you don't write more than 35 pages, then you can pretty much know that you're not going to score well on our final exam, right? That's how we operate. So the more we write, the more score we get. That's not the way here. So it's completely different, I would say. I think that's a thing that we can follow more. I emphasize on the practical. Ask the students to apply more what they learn on a practical project. That will help them in a real-time scenarios like what we are facing right now. That's just my opinion. Maybe I don't want to say too much and offend anybody, but I'm just being honest about the difference. I felt completely different what I've learned here, and I think that there are a lot of things that we can apply back home as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Benison. So kind of you. And I think there's no more questions in the chat box. Before we going for the vote of thanks, we have Mr. S. Krishna Kumar. He's the director for our Alumni Association, and also he's the director for our Applied Labs also. And you talked about a lot of labs also. I'm so glad that he is in our midst. I invite him to share a few words.
Sure.
Over to Krishna Kumar, sir.
Thank you, Samuel Benison, for your wonderful, thought-provoking presentation, and it will be useful to everyone, those who willing to study higher studies in abroad. And also, it's as per your statement, we are also concentrating more on practical and less theory. And recently, we have started 16 applied labs, and all the departments, they are concentrating more on practical. And even the placements also doing specifically on applied lab basis.
That's
okay,
correct.
Thank you for your support. And whenever we have time, please interact with our students also. Thank you.
Sure. I'm happy to, when any students have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I think I don't know how much I can give them, but I'm happy to answer any questions or share my experiences, whenever they want. So I'm always available for that.
Okay, thank you for your support. And very soon we are going to start the alumni chapter at the US. There are so many members are there in US, and together we start the alumni chapter at the US very soon. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kumar sir. Thank you so much for joining. It was a great privilege having you in midst of a busy schedule. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Arvind sir. And thank you, Brinda madam, for your arrangements of the webinar. Thank you.
And yeah, one more thing I would like to add is, like, anytime if you guys want to, if students have a few questions, we can consolidate all the questions, and then I'm happy to have another session like this if needed. We can do it again if students have more questions. I'm happy to answer that. So that's up to you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It's so nice. It's so nice and sweet of you, Benson. Thank you once again. Now I invite Professor Jevin for giving the vote of thanks. Over to Jevin, sir.
Good day to all. First of all, I'd like to thank Lord Almighty for making this day happen and making this session especially successful because of the cooperation of everyone. And my sincere thanks to the management and the people in management for giving support to the Department of CSE for conducting this session. And my gratitude to our principal, Dr. V. Velmurugan, for standing in our side for this session to be supported. And I sincerely thank Mr. Krishna Kumar sir, who is the director of FX Alumni Association, and he is really a backbone for all this, especially alumni-based sessions to be happened. Like he needs every time he needs someone to arrange a session, whatever, either lockdown or whatever, when it is active or when it is inactive, he's always being the backbone for making this type of sessions to be handled by, especially by an alumni. And my heartfelt thanks to our HOD, Mrs. Brenda ma'am, and as Arvind sir told in his welcome address, she has been tirelessly working for this for past 1 week amidst so many sessions she is handling. And my appreciation and thanks to Mr. Samuel Benison sir for his valuable time, first of all. And he has been so patient all this time and giving so many suggestions, and hope all the students would follow your suggestions, and they would come up in their careers as you suggested. And next, my thanks to Dr. Aravind Swaminathan sir, who initiated this session beautifully by his welcome address. He used to do that in all his sessions, and he is one of the reason for the session to happen successfully by his welcome address especially. And my recognitions to my staffs, colleagues, and students who are at the back end for making this session grand success, and hope this type of sessions to be happening in future. Thanks one and all.